if I could help sell their car for them. Sure, I probably could do that. And so they told me how much they wanted. They brought it over, and I said, I'll see if I can get it moved for you. They gave me the title for the vehicle. Well, one day somebody came by, and they wanted to buy it, and they had cash, and they were going to give the price that they were asking. And I tried to call our friend that was selling the vehicle, and I couldn't reach them. But I knew they wanted to sell it, and they would be okay with the deal and everything. And I pulled out the title, and they had signed one place on the title, but they had not signed another spot on the title. People were needing to close this deal out, and they were going to buy the car, and I kept trying to reach these people. I couldn't reach them. I thought, it'd probably be okay for me just to sign their name on the title and just make the deal happen. And so I went ahead and did that.
There's a moment in a 2017 church seminar where a man stands in front of a room full of people and confesses to committing a felony. He doesn't call it a felony. He calls it a lapse in judgment. He frames it as a lesson God taught him. The audience nods along. Nobody calls the police. Nobody even flinches. That man is Jim Bob Duggar, and what he described in his own words. On a recorded video meets the legal definition of second-degree forgery under Arkansas state law, a crime carrying a penalty of 3 to 10 years in prison. Everything discussed in this video comes from public court records, verified news reporting, official legal documents, and in this case, Jim Bob's own recorded statements. Now, here is the question that actually matters. This confession has been sitting in plain sight for years. So why does it matter now, and what does it tell us about how this family has operated for decades? To understand what Jim Bob confessed to, you need to understand what he was doing at the time. In the early years of his career, Jim Bob Duggar worked as a used car salesman in Arkansas. Part of that business involved selling cars. That means the car does not belong to him. The owner hands it over, they agree on a price, and the dealer earns a commission when it sells. Simple enough. Here is where it goes wrong. According to his own account, a buyer showed up with cash and was ready to pay the full asking price. That sounds like a clean deal. Except Jim Bob could not reach the actual owner to get her approval. And instead of waiting, he made a decision. He signed her name on the title. Now that might sound minor. A shortcut. An impatient guy trying to close a deal. But what he is describing has a legal name. It is called forgery. Specifically, the falsification of a government-issued title document to transfer ownership of a vehicle. In Arkansas, that is a Class C felony, and a Class C felony in that state carries a sentencing range of 3 to 10 years. He confessed this in a seminar run by the IBLP, the Institute in Basic Life Principles, an organization that has faced its own serious legal and ethical scrutiny over the years. The seminar was titled, Trusting God No Matter What. And the framework of these events is important to understand, because it shapes everything about why Jim Bob told the story the way he did. One of the core teachings inside IBLP circles is the concept of confessing hidden sin. The idea is that secret wrongdoing separates you from God. But if you confess it, apologize for it, and make things right privately, you are restored. Clean slate. The matter is settled before God, and that is what counts. What makes this particularly striking is how neatly that framework removes legal accountability from the equation entirely. You confess. The person forgives you. You feel relieved. And the state, the actual legal authority that governs forgery of a government document, never finds out. According to Jim Bob's own telling, the woman he defrauded was, in his words, very forgiving. He called her. He told her what he had done. She accepted his apology. End of story. But here's what he leaves out of that tidy resolution. Forgery of a vehicle title in Arkansas is not a crime against the individual whose signature was forged. It is a crime against the state, against the Arkansas Department of Finance and Administration. The victim's forgiveness, however genuine, does not erase the legal violation. That is not how state law works. Now here is where the timeline becomes important to understand. Jim Bob told this story in 2017. By that point, his family had already been through years of public scandal. His son, Josh Duggar, had faced allegations of abuse. The Ashley Madison leak had exposed infidelity. The family's public image had already fractured. And yet there he is, standing in front of that room, telling a story about forging a document, framing it as spiritual growth. And here is the part that most people overlook. This was not the first time this pattern appeared in the Duggar family. Jim Bob's own father faced legal consequences for conduct that follows a remarkably similar pattern, according to court records and reporting cited in published accounts by family members. Jim Bob's father ran a used car operation in Arkansas under the name Razorback Automotive. The Arkansas State Attorney General filed a civil case against him alleging violations of the State Consumer Protection Act. The allegations included selling vehicles on consignment without the consent of the owners, setting prices without authorization, accepting trade-ins that the owners had never agreed to. The case resulted in a 90-day jail sentence for Jim Bob's father. According to accounts from family members, that incarceration had significant effects on the family during that period. Jim Bob was approximately 14 or 15 years old when his father was arrested. That detail sits at the center of this whole story. Because what Jim Bob confessed to in 2017, selling a consignment vehicle without the owner's consent and forging her signature on the title, follows the same basic pattern as what his father did in 1979 and 1980. And he grew up watching it happen. Now at this point, I want to be precise about what we know and what we do not. Jim Bob's account of the title incident is vague on dates. We do not know exactly when it happened. The woman involved has never publicly spoken about it to our knowledge. The Arkansas authorities, based on available public records, never filed charges. The matter appears to have resolved privately. But none of that changes what he described. And none of it changes what the law says about it. What makes this story land differently than a standard scandal piece is the context around the confession itself. Jim Bob was not cornered. He was not deposed. He was not under oath. He chose to stand up in a room and tell people what he had done because the system he operates inside told him that confession equals restoration. That private accountability is sufficient accountability. And if you look at the broader pattern, the way legal and financial matters inside that family have reportedly been handled for years, that same logic appears again and again. Settle privately. Stay inside the community. Trust that God and not the courts will sort it out. The question that is worth sitting with after you watch this is not whether Jim Bob Duggar will ever face formal legal consequences for this specific incident. The statute of limitations almost certainly expired long ago. The real question is what it means when a system is specifically designed to process wrongdoing in a way that bypasses legal accountability entirely, and what it teaches the people who grow up inside it about consequences and about what it actually means to be held responsible for what you do. That is not a rhetorical question. It is the one this whole story keeps circling back to.